If you have young kids and are getting the child tax credit, does that mean you should be doing Roth conversions? That plus, how should you be investing when you're about to retire and nervous about the stock market? Got that and more coming up. Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Spotlights, where we shine a spotlight on a question from a fan of the show and answer it with one of the certified financial planners here at Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. I am your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners here at KFG. And with me again in the KFG studios, one of our financial planners, Ben Chambers. Well, welcome back, Ben.
Great to be here.
All right, so Ben was on an episode with us just a couple weeks ago talking about budgeting of all things and how budgeting is an essential discipline even as you're making, lots of income and really building wealth. So make sure you check that out if you haven't done so yet. Ben's one of the financial planners here at KFG. Like I mentioned, he leads our intern program, leads a couple of teams, and serves a lot of individuals as well. At home, it's no cakewalk either. You guys have a couple of young kiddos.
Yeah, if there's anything I've learned is more difficult than tax planning, it's potty training, which we are in the midst of right now. And it's going well. I am not taking the brunt of it. My wife, Peyton, is doing an excellent job, but it's not easy.
It's difficult. And wait till you hear the bad news that those with older kids would give anything to go back to the diaper and potty training days. That is so easy compared to what you're dealing with as they get older. But all right, speaking of kids, Ben, when you have young kids, you get the child tax credit as long as your income's below certain thresholds, and it's now up to $2,200. This is a child tax credit starting this year. Does that mean, now that you get this credit, and without doing anything extra, that puts a lot of people into refund territory, should you be doing Roth conversions at that time? Do you think, hey, child tax credit, Roth conversions, should you make that connection?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you mentioned the internship program. So I always try to train the interns when they start and they don't know much. If they're asked a question, just answer, well, it depends. And they're likely halfway there.
I'm going to kick you out of the studio, Ben. You're never getting back in here. It depends?
I would say it depends, but I'll give a couple examples. So Caden is one of our other financial advisors. And so we met with a new client last week, actually. And so similar scenario to what we're describing, early 30s, couple of young kids have the tax credit. And we were looking at their 24 tax return. And they were in a spot where conversions in their case probably made sense to do. They had about $20,000 of room in the 12% bracket. They could have done conversions. And even if they had done conversions, they probably would have still gotten a smaller refund, which would have been awesome. And they had some old retirement plans to consolidate. They could have done conversions with some of those dollars. So it was an opportunity, maybe missed, but maybe possible next year. And I would say they were in the sweet spot. Now, I say it depends because there's definitely spots where maybe you don't do it. Mm-hmm. It's possible if you were a little lower income than these individuals, things you got to watch out for. If you just press a button and you do conversions, well, maybe you messed up your retirement savers credit, your dependent care credit, your earned income credit, maybe premium tax credits if you were on that type of health insurance plan. And so a lot of those things could get messed up if you just do a conversion without thinking about it.
And the other thing is when you're under age 59 and a half, which is probably likely if you've got young kiddos where you're getting the child tax credit, and you try to withhold some taxes, that's going to be taxable, but it's also going to be penalized, the amount that you withhold for taxes. And so work with your certified financial planner, because I do think if you are saving up for retirement and are doing so pre-tax, as soon as you start having kids, that is an opportune time where you say, well, we've got this. Do I take this refund or do we do some Roth conversion? But it's not a one size fits all.
And one more thing I forgot to mention, we're located in Indiana. So if your kids do private school and you're part of the voucher system, that would be another thing to consider there.
Yeah. So you got to look at all areas of your financial life, and certainly within your tax planning, what other trade-offs would there be when you're trying to take advantage of this opportunity? So, all right, let's shift gears here. We've got a question from Dan coming up, but on our way there, Ben, he's asking about investing when you're on the verge of retirement or about to enter retirement. This is an area where a lot of people make mistakes. Why is this area, this time period, right before you retire or right at retirement, such a ripe time for investment planning mistakes?
Yeah, I think it's a critical time, which makes it more prone to mistakes.
Okay.
I would say the mistakes that are the most common happen at opposite ends of the spectrum. And usually if either way, you were on autopilot, most likely. So in one scenario, you didn't ever change your 401k or your investment allocation from when you started, right? So you started young, saved for a long time, and you never made any changes. And so by the time you get to retirement, it's very possible you are way more aggressive than you should have been. On the opposite end of the spectrum, maybe your perception is, hey, I'm done working or I'm about to be done working. My risk dial needs to be turned all the way off.
Yeah.
And so on that side of the spectrum, you can make some mistakes as well. Either is most likely the wrong answer.
Yeah. It also seems like this time, at this time period, it's very, very charged with emotions. I'll just throw my father under the bus as well. But he's a seasoned investor, started saving very, very young when he started at his employer right out. Actually, he started and was going to college at night, but he started saving up in their 401k as soon as they started offering it, very accustomed to the ups and downs of the market. He had the first big drop in the stock market after retirement, and this guy panicked. Just because you're not saving anymore, you're going to be relying on those dollars. Everything just feels different, and those emotions can lead you to making some potentially errant decisions. So
right, and it's way easier to be emotional when you've built up that nest egg. You know, if you're working in your 30s, 40s, you might not be thinking about it, but as you've worked hard and you've saved diligently, you're going to be more emotional.
Well, that's one of the other things that we've talked about a little bit right here on this channel is, listen, because of the stock market, how it's done the past few years, it's likely you have more money in your investment accounts today or at the beginning of this year than you've ever had. And therefore, a normal 10 or 15% decline in the market numerically is going to feel gigantic because this is the most money you've ever had invested. And yet it's still a 10 or 15% decline, 20% decline, something like that. And so managing those emotions. All right, navigating over here. Interesting question here from Dan. He said, hi, Mike. Love the Wise Money Show and appreciate how practical you make retirement planning. Thank you. I'm 62 years old, married. We're planning to retire in the next 12 to 18 months. We've saved up about $1.6 million between our 401ks and IRAs. We got about $180,000 in cash taxable investments. Also have Social Security income, small pension, and it's going to cover our basic expenses. But here's my concern. I've spent the last 30 years focused on growth. But now that retirement's actually here, I'm nervous about market volatility. I don't want to be overly conservative and fall behind on inflation, but I also don't want a big market drop early in retirement to derail everything that I've worked for. How should someone like us think differently about investing as we move into retirement? Should our portfolio look dramatically different on day one of retirement compared to when we are working? How do we balance all of this? Dan, fantastic question. Love the detail. Almost everyone is in this exact same situation. And I feel it more right now, again, because the stock market has done so well, and yet there is still seemingly a growing pile of uncertainty out there in the world that I'm about ready to rely on all this money, and I'm nervous about what to do.
Right. It's such a great question. There's so many different ways you could attack this because there's a lot of information. There are a few things. I would also say this is the question as to why you need financial planning. Because if you look at this question, you could spend a long time going through every single facet of this. Some of just the questions that popped on to my head. He said he's 62. Well, I'm curious about the health insurance plan there. He mentioned that Social Security and a pension cover a portion of basic expenses. Well, what's a portion look like? And 180 in cash and taxable investments. What is the breakdown there between cash and taxable investments? Because those would function a bit differently. But I would say it's very likely that maybe not dramatically different, but portfolios should look different.
Yeah.
On the first day of retirement, it could be. But this would be an excellent time, in my opinion, to really just back up and go through the questions of how do I come up with an investment allocation in the first place?
Yeah.
And you start with your risk tolerance. Well, what's my willingness to take risk? It sounds like Dan is becoming a little less willing to take risk. What's my risk capacity? So Dan has some fixed income, which in a sense might increase my risk capacity, meaning I have the ability to take more risk if I want to. And then what's my risk composure, which is how likely am I to actually behave in the way that I say I'm willing to behave, right? Which can vary widely.
Yeah. I also think absolutely great perspective, Ben. I I would then also tune into your plan to say, well, what do you need these investments to do for you? Right? So all of those components of risk, yep, that's one side of it. And the other side is time horizon. You mentioned that you're now at retirement, you got this base income, blah, blah, blah. But how much are you going to be relying on those investments for short-term withdrawals? Because short-term withdrawals, even in the S&P 500, there are short-term time periods where the S&P 500 almost goes straight up. There are times when it goes sideways, but yeah, in the short term, there are times when it can go feeling like it's going straight down. And if those are the dollars that you need in the short term, that can be very, very vulnerable. So in addition to that risk assessment that you're talking about, Ben, I would then also look to the math, and we're geeky, but tune into that financial plan. How much do you need to be withdrawing every single month? Because say you need $3,000 out of your portfolio every month in order to supplement your Social Security and all that. Well, $3,000 over a year, that's $36,000. Over 3 years, call it $100,000. Okay, I'd probably have $100,000, so 3 years worth of your income in very low risk investments. All of a sudden, how does your risk composure feel then? Does it now feel less threatening? And then if you can build a bridge beyond that, where you've got the next 5 to 7 years in medium risk or low risk, maybe you've got some upside potential, but have some defined downside protection. How's your risk composure there? And if that meant that you've got this runway where you 8 to 10 years of visibility as to and confidence where you're going to get your spending from, the rest of the dollars, I mean, don't be speculative. Don't swing for the fences or strike out, but maybe you're comfortable going up and down with the market, hitting singles and doubles, the occasional triple and home run with those dollars.
Right. And if I'm simplifying what you said, it's very similar to the 3 bank account system we talk about, where part of my portfolio should be short-term, intermediate term, long-term, of course. But financial planning is what will answer this question.
Yes.
And whether it's a retirement planning projection or cash flow analysis, that'll help us answer, well, Dan's worried about inflation. How worried should he be? Does he really need to take on the extra risk to beat inflation? Or could he take less risk? And would that affect the decisions he makes with his portfolio? And you mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was a client or a family example, which is a good thing to talk through with clients, which is, well, what if the market does certain things early on in my retirement? Yeah. And so we talk about what's called the sequence of returns, which is essentially I might have 2 portfolios that over time have the same exact average rate of return. But because one portfolio had different returns at different times, the overall end result is very different. And so essentially, I could boil it down to a bad market, which you are going to experience in retirement. Yeah. A bad market within the first 5 years of retirement has a disproportional effect on your overall portfolio than a bad year 10 years into retirement.
Yeah. Yep. And that 3 bank account system in retirement, we call that your personal pension plan. And that also diffuses that sequence of return risk, because if you do experience that really tough 5 years in the stock market early on in retirement, but you've got 3 years set aside in low risk investments, you've got another 5 to 7 years in sort of medium risk or defined downside protection, that can help you navigate those, the chance of a poor sequence of return risk. So, all right, let me just restate it here to answer the question, Dan. Take inventory of your risk, honestly, and those 3 different categories that Ben talked about. Update your financial plan. Take a look at your tax picture. Take a look at your present financial picture. Take a look at your investment strategies and your retirement plan, fitting that all together to see what that informs you. My guess is it will reveal the amount of risk and the right investment strategies for you. And then consider building out that sort of 3 bank account system, if you will, but that personal pension plan for short-term dollars, intermediate-term dollars, and long-term dollars that will help you take risk, but still have it done in a calculated way, so you're not taking too much risk for your time horizon and risk tolerance. Work with your certified financial planner on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on our team. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com, Korhorn.com as well. It's Korhorn with a K. Or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.